We'll try this again. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to hang on. That was lovely. All right. I'm bummed. We gave it a good go. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to a hump day edition of Morning Scone presented by Brock, the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic, Hoodco Roofing, HoodcoRoofing.com, Restored Motions, RestoredMotions.com, and ProCharge EV, ProChargeEV.com. Very disappointed. Oh, there are two cardinals outside of my window. That's beautiful. That's a great sign today, even though it's freezing. Right there. Two beautiful red birds. They're both cardinals. Look at that. That's incredible. Last time that happened, the Arizona Cardinals had a really good day playing football. I don't think there's any teams playing named the Cardinals that are playing today. Maybe Louisville. We'll see. They're frolicking right there on the grass. That puts me in a better mood. Good morning, everybody. Obviously a big day. The LSU has hired Raymond. Now you can all stop asking me. LSU has hired Raymond, so now you can all stop asking me when they're going to get that done. And they've also added another staffer, according to Billy Embody, which we will get to here shortly. And the Saints fire Pete Carmichael on Tuesday. After the holiday, it was the first day back there at the facility. So thanks to Jeff Duncan, who came on AFR and explained that. So that's why they had their sort of exit interviews. They probably knew that was coming a week ago, but they were only back in the building today. And so that's why the timing was what it was. So in any event, really a day full of a lot of movement. Thank you for being with us. For those who were here on the original stream, today I was trying new streaming software that would allow me to send one stream from one site to a bunch of different platforms, and we got live on looks like we went live on YouTube, did not go live on Facebook, and the audio was not there on YouTube. So I tinkered with it for a long time last night. Thought I had it. Clearly I didn't, but we'll continue to hammer away, and hopefully we'll have it better for tomorrow. So, okay, we'll say some good mornings, but LSU gets it done with Raymond. So I guess we could talk a little more detail about it. I was really confident that was going to get across the finish line because when I was in New York for the Heisman, I was told, and that's done. And when you hear the same story from multiple people independent of each other, it's typically when you can piece together that something is close or something's getting done or is done. And and then when it was sort of being, I don't want to say slow played, but whenever you kept asking over and over, is it going to get done? You start asking questions, and what kind of came back was what I had alluded to, was that there was a little disagreement there, and not everybody was on the same page. But and I was curious who ultimately was going to get their way, because there wasn't this sort of consensus agreement about what direction to go. And the other thing too to keep in mind that I've told you for weeks now is how they choose to structure the staff. Remember, right now, not only have you added Raymond, but Billy Embody reported last night that LSU added Jake Olson as well from Missouri. So Jake Olson was a analyst who has also spent time as a special teams coach. So Is Jake Olson coming here to coach special teams? Now he's coached at Northwestern State, ULM, Nichols. He's been with Blake Baker the past 2 years in Missouri, so he's got plenty of experience in Louisiana. But they haven't yet determined. And by the way, when he was at ULM, Nichols, and Northwestern State, he was also the recruiting coordinator along with the special teams coordinator. So he did work with safeties at Missouri and could maybe split duties. We'll see. The role hasn't been determined. Billy Embody reported that he'd been hired and the role is still TBD. So that kind of goes into what I've been talking about here. Like, they're trying to figure out how they're going to divvy up roles. And so you've added Olson and now you've added Raymond. So you're full on the defensive side, right? I mean, you've got Blake Baker, you got Bo Davis, you got Kevin Peoples. Baker's going to coach linebackers, which I've told you. Bo Davis will coach interior line. Peoples will coach edge and defensive end. You added Corey Raymond, that's 4. And now Olson, is he going to coach safeties and special teams or just special teams? Whatever, either way. And then offensively, that's 5 assistants. And offensively, you've got Joe Sloan, Cortez Hankton, Brad Davis, and Frank Wilson. So you only have 1 assistant spot left, and you have to have a tight ends coach. So, and I told you the 2 names. It's Slade Nagel from Tulane and John McNulty, who was Brian Kelly's tight ends coach for 2 years at Notre Dame in 2020 and 2021. When Kelly got hired here and hired Mike Denbrock, Denbrock was coaching tight ends, so Kelly didn't bring McNulty with him. And McNulty was an analyst at Bama last year. So, I mean, there's your 10 assistants. Like, one of those guys, like I said, they're very likely going to promote Sloan and Hankton to a co-OC role. And Sloan will call plays, but they still have to add a tight ends coach. So that's your last one. So your defensive staff is finished. And it's really just a matter of now roles. Like, are they going to have Olson coach special teams and safeties, or just special teams and Corey Raymond will coach the whole secondary? We'll see how that goes. Again, TBD. But what they have very clearly done is build a staff of incredible recruiters. And I don't mean to diminish the work that these coaches do on field. Like, Bo Davis is known and regarded as the best defensive line coach in college football, or one of them. Kevin Peoples has been a Broyles finalist for the best assistant in college football, or a semifinalist for the best assistant in college football. I don't, Corey Raymond has a reputation as an incredible DB coach. So I'm not trying to diminish their role on field. Obviously, you got a bunch of guys that can coach, but you also have a bunch of dudes you've added a bunch of dudes with deep ties to this state that have a certain recruiting prowess and acumen. I mean, you add Bo Davis and Corey Raymond and now Olson to a staff, Blake Baker as well, to a staff that already included Frank Wilson and Cortez Hankton and Brad Davis. I mean, you have a staff of incredible recruiters. And you could ask the question, what's more important, to have great coaching or great recruiting? And ultimately, I don't care how great your coaching is, if the recruiting isn't there, there is a ceiling on what your program can accomplish. And in a perfect world, you get both of them. And I think LSU has done that here. So, man, I am really, really excited for what they've been able to do. Let's say some good mornings here. We're apparently, I don't know why I can't get Facebook to go live, so we're just YouTube only today. So please smash the like button if you would, subscribe up to the channel. Brett Guidry, Trivia Carter, Christian, good morning, Clint Fontenot, Lawrence Burley, Jason H, Bryce Burks, Brett Gidry, Paul G, Barry Jocelyn. Good morning, y'all. Good morning, Brian Penton. I do want to give you get you some thoughts on Pete Carmichael being fired as well. So the Brock overlay was dope. Day one of new equipment woes to be expected. So I'm just back on my phone streaming on YouTube only. But I'll try to iron out the kinks and figure out what went wrong with my audio. But at least we were live. We were live and we had the overlays and stuff. And I'll improve even more on that. But I got to figure out what went wrong with the audio. That was a bummer. Jacob Thompson, it's -6 degrees and icy in Virginia today. Ooh. Not an LSU question this time, but do you like the Jordan 3 infrared? Yeah. I love when we're getting shoe questions. Kelly Gross, Christian. Pretty soon he's going to have a banner running across the bottom of the screen like Whiskey and Wine. That's the hope, man, is that I'm like, so there's different streaming softwares. The one we use for Whiskey and Wine is called vMix, and it's not very user-friendly, but it can do a lot more functionally. What I decided to use was something called StreamYard because functionally it's supposed to be easier, and you can bring on guests as well. So companion shows, etc. in the future, when I want to bring guests on, I can do that very easily via StreamYard, which is why I chose StreamYard over vMix, but clearly I'm still getting used to it. Anyway, let's see. Paul G, Jeff Hawk, good morning. Randall Offrett, Kelly Presley, James McKinney, good to see y'all. Brian Wynn. Hey, Dad, good morning. Pat Huseman, let us pray. Let's see, Brad David, let's get to your questions. Brad David, do you think Carmichael ends up in Denver with Sean Payton? Absolutely. If you missed my conversation yesterday with Jeff Duncan on AFR, would highly recommend you go listen to it. And in particular, there's a clip I posted, which was, about 2 minutes, and it was Jeff explaining through Sean Payton's eyes the importance of Pete Carmichael, and what really struck me. And keep in mind that Jeff Duncan wrote the book, like Peyton and Breeze, the architects are the two men behind the greatest offense in NFL history. So he wrote the book on Sean Payton, Drew Brees, and that Saints offense. Literally wrote the book. And I asked him, what role Pete Carmichael played in those offenses over those years. And Duncan said, he pried and asked Sean Payton about that a lot. And Payton said Pete Carmichael was one of the top 5 most important people to the success of the offense over those 18 years. I mean, think about all the different players and assistants that came through over, 16 years. But Payton, and he said Carmichael was in the top 5 most important. Very telling. So I'm very grateful for the role that Pete Carmichael played in New Orleans for all those years. He was part of a ton of success. It was time to go. But yes, it makes so much sense that Carmichael would end up in Denver with Sean Payton. Sean Payton thinks the world of him, so yes. ML Fody, Jesse Brown, Jenny Gari, good morning. Paul G, what's up? Go Real and Matt. If there was a press conference tomorrow, what would your first question to Brian Kelly be about the team as it sits? I'm glad you asked that too, because did y'all see the clip of there was a reporter in Tampa who asked Todd Bowles how they were going to handle the frigid temperatures in Detroit. Detroit plays in a dome. And so she's going viral now for that question. But my thought when I saw it was, man, that is why it is so important to prepare. Like every time I go into a press conference, I write down the questions I want to ask. I think about it and write down the questions I want to ask. And I'll have 5, 6 questions, whatever it is. And And so I go in and I don't end up in that situation in a press conference. So what would I ask Brian Kelly tomorrow? I don't know, because I wouldn't want to think about it if I had one question. But I'd have to think about it. Because you also have to understand you can ask any question you want, but he's also liable to just give you a coach speak, answer to anything as well. So what could I ask that would have some real substance to it? I'll think on it. Roger Dodger, the mayonnaise kid. One last old-fashioned morning scone before the future gets here. Bring in Musso to produce morning scone. I can't afford him. Taz, good morning. If Breeze has the itch, how about OC? Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I think Drew Brees retired, and even retired from broadcasting after 1 year for the reason to be closer to family and all that stuff. So you don't think about it, man, but even when you're broadcasting, it's still a challenging week during the season when you're traveling to games or to studio. If Breeze lives in San Diego with his family and has to be, like when he was doing NBC and he was, basically probably leaving Wednesday to go to South Bend or Thursday to go to South Bend, practice on Friday, prep meetings, game on Saturday, leave immediately after the game to go to New York for Football Night in America. All day Sunday you're watching games, Football Night in America. You either sleep, fly home on Monday, or or go home right after Football Night in America. But either way, 4 days a week, you're not with your family. So I don't think Drew Brees has any desire to do that. Joel Ensminger, Jesse Brown, Matt, is there a coach that can fix the Saints offense as OC? Gruden? I think Gruden is a very obvious, probably the most obvious, especially since the Saints spoke with him in Tampa a couple of weeks ago. John Gruden wants to be an NFL head coach again. So, but is this the path back in as an OC first? Maybe. I'd be fine with John Gruden as the offensive coordinator. I'd be elated with John Gruden from a football perspective as the offensive coordinator. Now, how would that work culturally in the building? No, I don't know. I don't know John Gruden, so I don't know. But I think that's a real possibility. I think promoting Ronald Curry is a real possibility as well. And then you could look at Clint Kubiak. You could look at other guys that are affiliated with, associated with really good offenses in the NFL, and it would make sense. The other question is, how desirable is the Saints job? I mean, you have a coach that's essentially coaching for his job this year. So who wants to jump into that, that mess, knowing if you don't have a great year, you could be fired, with the rest of the staff. Hunter Broadhead, good morning. Like the quarterback coach from Houston, replace Carmichael, hopefully. Joseph B, Paul G, Hunter Broadhead. That means the Cardinals are winning the World Series. Cajun Country said, even my billion-dollar company cannot get IT issues worked out easily. It takes at least 2 weeks to get simple computer set up. You do it all yourself. I know, man. It shouldn't take. It's definitely operator error. I mean, I did something wrong with that, but I'll figure it out. I'm trying to go through all the tutorials and figure it out. Zach Swan, good morning. Joshua Rector, good morning. A Truax, good morning. Mike the Tiger, Jaden Daniels, Heisman, 1 down, 2 to go with the Saints. Yeah, I don't know, man. If you're talking about Loomis and Allen, I think they're going to be back. I know there was a report yesterday or some internet rumor yesterday about the Saints potentially promoting Kai Harley to GM and moving Loomis into like a, president type role with Lauscher or something. I don't know what they're going to do, but I will say, I know I said this last week when Kai Harley interviewed for the Panthers GM job. You better be sure that he's not your next one, because you already let Dan Campbell out the building. And it happens all the time. Organizations get coaches and front office personnel plucked. And the Saints have had a lot of them. I mean, Terry Fontenot is now the GM in Atlanta. Ryan Nielsen's the defensive coordinator in Atlanta. You could look all over and see instances of Aaron Kromer and Joe Lombardi. I mean, there's a lot of Ryan Pace when he went to the Bears as GM. The Saints have let a lot of guys leave the building. But you also really screwed up with Dan Campbell. Like, you let the wrong assistant leave. You better not do that with Kai Harley. If you think he could be your next GM and is the next guy, you better not let him out the building, especially not to go to Carolina. And then you'd have two former Saints executives as the GMs in Atlanta and Carolina. Spurge, good morning. Cajun Country, sorry it worked out this way for Pete, but we did get a Super Bowl out of it. Man, you got a Super Bowl, you got 7 division titles, you got 9 playoff appearances, and he was a big part of it, man. So you can be grateful for you should, and I think we all feel the same way, agree that it was time. It was time for Pete Carmichael to go. It was time for this era to end, and I'm there with it. But you can also appreciate what he accomplished over the time that he did. I gave the comparison to the opening scene of Wedding Crashers when they're doing the divorce mediation. It's like, you didn't always fight. There had to be good times, right? It was the wedding. What'd you have? Crab cakes. Oh, I love crab cakes. How do you not love crab cakes? Did you have a band? Yeah. Were they good? Who cares? They were good. It's music's in the air. Just a couple of kids trying to make it honest. Anyway, Sonny Warmington, American Patriot, Alan Black, good morning. Finish strong. Stoked about Raymond, but what is up with the portion of our fan base that keeps spreading the narrative he wasn't good in 20 and 21? He writes, Bo Pelini, Edo, COVID, the entire program was struggling. I'll keep going back to, listen, if you want to scapegoat Corey Raymond, fine. But there's this narrative out there somehow that he stopped recruiting or forgot how to coach. Remember what happened. So in 2019, you signed Marcel Brooks, Cordell Flott, Mo Hampton, Raydarius Jones, Stingley, of course, and Jay Ward. Pretty good defensive back class. Stingley, Jay Ward, Flott, all NFL guys. You missed on Hampton. Marcel Brooks ended up playing a different position and transferred. And Raydarius Jones transferred as well. But you had numbers there, okay? And then in 2020, you had Stingley returning, of course. You signed Dwight McGlothern and Eli Ricks, and you had Jordan Tolles at safety. So in those two classes, you signed Stingley, Raydarius Jones, Jay Ward, Eli Ricks, Dwight McGlothern at corner. That's a pretty good haul, okay? And then, of course, after 2020, you go into 2021, and Stingley gets hurt and then opts out after his injury. You have Eli Ricks playing hurt again. Jay Ward is still there. Cordell Flott ends up becoming the best nickel in the country. You added Major Burns via the portal. You signed a bunch of safeties. You signed Matthew Langlois as well. Sage Ryan was a 5-star. That was a must-take. Now, he hasn't developed, but he was a 5-star. That was a must-take. And you added Demarius McGee as well. But remember, in that class in 21, you only signed Um, you only signed Demarius McGee at corner, and a lot of people can look and say, well, you only signed one corner. But remember, you had Ricks and Stingley, Flott, Ward, McGlothern. Like, you had numbers in 21, but then Stingley opted out. And then the next year, Ricks went into the portal and left, and McGlothern went into the portal and left. And so you lost your top. Stingley goes pro, and then you lose your top two. You lose your top two guys to the portal, and Ricks and McGlothern, and Corey's gone. So it's like, what are you left with? Well, Demarius McGee and Raydarius Jones and Jay Ward, who's a really good player for you. Flott went pro, and so that's when Brian Kelly had to go attack the portal. But it's not like Corey wasn't recruiting great talent in the secondary. It's not like they weren't getting coached up. Like, you went from, Dave Aranda to Bo Pelini to Durante Jones. You had 3 different defensive coordinators in 3 years. So you had massive turnover. The head coach got fired. You had opt-outs. You had COVID. I mean, I don't know. If you're just looking at, if you're looking to scapegoat Corey, if you're looking to place blame there, you can do it. But it is very misguided, man. You were still getting a massive defensive back haul of great talent, but you had opt-outs and you had injuries and you had guys leave via the portal and you had roster mismanagement and you had COVID and you had a head coach that went off the deep end and made bad defensive coordinator hires. And I mean, if you're looking at what went wrong with the LSU defense over that stretch, Corey Raymond would be about 73rd on the list of things that I would have said was going wrong with LSU's defense at that point. So, I mean, sometimes people like the idea of something shiny and new, and that's fine. But look at the reaction of all the people on players, former players, recruits on social media to the news that LSU was adding Corey Raymond. I mean, you don't forget how to backpedal and flip your hips. Corey knows how to coach defensive backs. And more importantly, he knows how to get 5-star defensive backs. You realize the only player in the top 10 in Louisiana this year is not coming to LSU is Wardell Mack. And Wardell Mack committed to Florida to go play for Corey Raymond. And then when Raymond got fired, he decommitted and went to Texas. So I'm excited about Corey Raymond. And I can't understand why anybody else wouldn't be. David, good morning. James Avery, Christian, we're robbing Mizzou. I just know drink is in shambles at this point. Happens. After the show yesterday, Musso said, and I laughed. He goes, "What if I had told you at the beginning of the season that LSU would be remaking its staff and they'd be pillaging Missouri to do so?" I was like, "Oh man, things didn't go too well, did they?" But it's looking great. Elijah Stell, Mortimat, picture and audio looks great. I don't know if you're more excited about the hire itself or the fact you don't have to be asked about it 24/7. Both. Both. I mean, I tell you, I'm happy to share information and what I have when I have it, but that's also the I guess the risk, if you want to say it that way, which is, you run the risk of people misinterpreting things you say, because things do change and evolve. And, I think that's normal throughout these situations. And it doesn't mean that at the time we're talking about it, it's not good and accurate information, but things change. So, and things, I mean, they could have announced Corey 6 weeks ago. Could have, anyway, but they kept everybody together through the bowl game, and then waited till the next week after that to announce the firings, and now they've sort of been building the staff together. Cajun Bradley Cooper, morning, Scone. Hope you and your family are well. You ready for spring football? Sure, man. I don't super geek out about spring football. I'm probably more excited in the springtime about watching this baseball team. Brent St. Germain, Cosmas Zuna, Morning Matt, already ready for some football. LOL, are you? Tim C reports have Desmond Ricks to A&M. Yeah, apparently that was an NIL deal. Talked about it yesterday on air with Shay Dixon, where Ricks apparently had his NIL number, and it was very similar to Lance Hurd. Had his NIL number, and LSU wasn't willing to, like they talked. He was going to visit here and had his number. LSU said no thanks, so he said okay, no thanks. So he was going to A&M, which is okay, man. That's any kid's prerogative. I'm not being critical. That's not a knock on A&M. Like every team has to decide how they are going to allocate their finances. You have to decide. Your collective has a finite amount of money, and you have to determine how you're going to allocate it. And with Ricks, it's very similar to Lance Hurd. Yes, it was a 5-star, highly touted guy that you'd love to have, but he was also a backup. So are you really willing to pay whatever he's asking to a backup? And the answer with Lance Hurd was no, and the answer with Desmond Ricks was no. Barry, sorry, Mizzou. LSU is the big brother who gives you a swirly and steals your best toys. Please smash the like button if you would, and subscribe up to the channel. Let's see. Clinton Auto, what's up, Clint? Good morning, man. Do we see the potential for all these personalities to clash? Look, Clint, I mean, when you're talking about a staff of, head coach, 10 assistants, analysts, etc., 85 scholarship players, dozens of support personnel, yeah, I mean, I think that happens everywhere. Am I worried about, like, personalities on staff clashing in meetings or on no, because you have leadership. I mean, you have a head coach in Brian Kelly that has worked hard to build organizational structure and culture and all that sort of stuff, which LSU was lacking before. I mean, you can love Ed Ogeron, like that's okay. You could love Ed, a Louisiana guy, and all that, but you also have to acknowledge the structural and organizational shortcomings that Ed had. I mean, it's why it went the way it did. I mean, look at the hires from Matt Canada and Bo Pelini and Durante Jones and Jake Peets. I mean, he mismanaged the roster. He was just not a head coach, man. Not a program, CEO. Brian Kelly is, so I worry less about that with someone like Kelly because you don't hear about that sort of stuff. Astro Thunder, Dalton Barnett, Antron Hemingway. Good morning. Stop by to say hi to you and the fam. Have a blessed day. Thank you, Antron. Same to you, man. Same to you and yours. Tremaine 318, morning Matt, sounding great. Glad to see Corey is back. Thank you, Tremaine. You're so uplifting. I appreciate you for being here. William Moore, what's up? Reagan Lee. Reagan Lee says I use StreamYard frequently. Let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, Reagan, why didn't my microphone work today? And I'm also trying to build a custom overlay as well. But it's weird. Like I went to the audio setting and chose my microphone that was plugged in. Anyway. Irvin Jennings, Anthony Cortella, when Corey Raymond left LSU, was it a Brian Kelly decision or Corey Raymond wanted to change? It was Kelly. And so some people have said, and you're not wrong, well, think about what if Brian Kelly had retained Blake Baker and Corey Raymond and Greg McMahon, and all that is true. But it's also with the benefit of hindsight. Now, two of them, I said at the time, were mistakes. And I have this recorded because T-Bob and I did an episode of Scone and T at the time where when Kelly hired his first staff, we looked at the outgoing staff from 21 and the incoming staff for 22. And we said, okay, are they better or worse at each spot? And went down the list. And there were only two spots where we sort of universally accepted that LSU was worse, and that was special teams by letting Greg McMahon go and bringing in Polian. and defensive backs by letting Corey Raymond go, and bringing in Steeples and Cooks. So, um, but every coach has his prerogative to hire a staff. Like it's uncommon that a coach is hired and just retains a staff. A guy comes in and brings his staff. So in some instances, you throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's kind of what happened there. As far as Blake Baker, remember Baker was coaching linebackers. Well, you hired Matt House to be your DC, and he coached linebackers, so you didn't have a spot for Blake Baker. Anyway, so yeah, no, I mean it was Brian Kelly's decision. He let the staff go. The only staff member he retained was Brad Davis on the offensive line. Joe, not to rain on the parade, seen a lot of articles recently, including from LSU, that Michigan will pursue LSU Wire, that Michigan will pursue Brian Kelly as head coach if it opens, and Brian Kelly would definitely take it. Not good. Oh, you're seeing a lot of that. I'm glad, Joe. I'm glad you traced it to LSU Wire. I'm not joking with you, Joe. Here, I'm just joking here. It's a long story that I really don't feel like digging up again, but essentially, Joe, a lot of people have laid that story at my feet because about a month ago we talked about that hypothetical on Morning Scone, and I said that if he was offered the job, he would take it, and I still believe that. Like I'm not backing off that. I do believe if Michigan comes open and Brian Kelly's offered, that I think he would take the job. But I also, the caveat that I threw out 100 times that got omitted from the clip was I have no idea at all if A, Harbaugh's leaving, or B, if Michigan would have any interest whatsoever in Brian Kelly, which is kind of an important part of that whole conversation. So, but I don't think there's a very good chance that Michigan would come calling on Brian Kelly. So, Jason Walker, what's up? Jason H, Nike SB Court Purple coming out next Saturday on the Sneakers app. Okay, I got to set notifications. Good looking out, man. Appreciate the heads up. DGX, is that rumor with Mickey Loomis, Kai Harley true? Is just rumor? Yeah, I haven't heard it anywhere reputable. And the thing that kind of popped on social media yesterday a little bit was Kai Harley being promoted to GM and Mickey Loomis moving into a different type of role. But I have no idea if it's legitimate. I haven't heard it from anyone legitimate. Paul G, Mark Allen, Todd's expression was classic. Todd. Ask Brian, Bulls, if Brian Kelly likes tomatoes in his gumbo. McGiblets 82, Matt, did you see the A&M AD left for Ohio State? I did. We talked about it yesterday and after further review. A little odd that Ross Bjork keeps getting these promotions. We went from Ole Miss to A&M, now to Ohio State. And I don't know what he's done that you really look as like a benchmark, like a cornerstone of his career. Anyway. LA Chris, morning up. Do you think if Brian Kelly didn't hire Corey, would have been picked up by Bama? No clue, because I don't know what Kalen DeBoer is looking to do, who he's bringing with him from Washington, so no idea. Is Gruden the sleeper head coach in waiting? It kind of feels like that. If you bring in Gruden it's what you did with Dennis Allen. You brought him as a defensive assistant. Rob Ryan got fired. You promoted Dennis Allen to DC. He got the full-time job, then ultimately replaced Sean Payton. So it feels like that could be a possibility. Chris Carter, do you think we're waiting for a possible OC from the pros, then fall back on Sloan? No, I don't. I think they're going to promote Sloan and Hankton as co-OCs. And at this point, if you hired an OC, it would have to be a tight ends coach as well, because if you hired an OC whose specialty was quarterbacks, well, we have Sloan on staff, and he's not going anywhere. So, again, I've told you all that the last week. It really feels like the momentum for OC is just stick with what you did in the bowl game. Hankton, Sloan, co-OCs with a Sloan calling plays. If something changes, I'll let you know, but that seems to be the most recent sort of push in momentum. Abner Neal, why not bring Joe Lombardi back to be OC? I don't want to get the band back together in New Orleans. Like, you had this era. It was great. you've missed the playoffs 3 years in a row now. Like, fix it. Go a different direction. Acknowledge it's time to do something different. I don't want Joe Lombardi back. I don't want ties to the old staff anymore. I want, like, appreciate what you had and move on. Matt Lusto, grateful Carmichael was here, grateful he's gone. Big Christen, what's up? Devin Kelly, good morning. Video way better on your phone than your streaming laptop. Doesn't even look HD. There's a reason for that, Devin. It's really, even though I'm streaming in 1080p on the laptop, it's the camera and then it's on Wi-Fi, so I need a hardwire to my router, but also to my I guess to the router, but also I'm going to get a camera as well, a streaming camera. So I'm not just using the camera on the laptop. We're figuring it out. So, but yeah, I agree. I mean, it definitely looks better on the phone. Gunnar Michaels, Big Christum, David Hawes, morning Matt. Tiger Baseball came in number 4 yesterday. Who are the leading candidates for the weekend rotation? Yeah, so D1 Baseball's preseason top 25 out. They got LSU number 4. Your rotation, barring something unforeseen, and a lot can change. Thatcher Hurd, Luke Holman, the Alabama transfer, and Gage Jump, the UCLA transfer. I think that's your rotation. Things can change, and we'll see how it goes, but I'd expect those 3 to be your first 3 on opening weekend. Daniel Edwards, West Lawn to name an OC, just joined. Apologize if you talked about it. Yeah, I don't know why they're waiting. I think it's just, I mean, it's kind of like, I think I've used this comparison before, but it was like when you hired Ed to be the head coach, there was no reason to rush it because he's there, and no matter when you offer it to him, he's going to take the job, even if he's your 15,000th choice. The same with Sloan. I mean, he's on staff, he's under contract, he'll take the job, but there are just other things I think that they wanted to take care of first, namely the defensive staff, which they have. Tara Wild, good morning. Make defense great again. Matt, did you see McLaughlin's ex-post last night when they announced Raymond hire? He retweeted, said he should have never left. Wow. Wait, who should have never left? McLaughlin or Raymond? I mean, I think that's part of it, you know. Should have never let him go. I mean, that's... There you go. I just retweeted it. I mean, that's the point, right? Like, if BK had retained Corey, you probably keep McLaughlin. You got a better shot of keeping Ricks, although that was really an NIL thing. And maybe you don't go through the tumult you did in the secondary the past couple of years. Ryan Slayton, Corey, DBU is back. I just got as excited as you with Saban's retirement when I heard Corey's back. I don't know that it's that level of excitement, man. But yeah, I'm excited too. Reagan Lee, speaking of Lance Hurd, is there a chance he comes back? I don't see it, Reagan. I mean, Lance Hurd, I'm telling you, man, that was an NIL thing. The guy got, the collective did a very nice deal with him when he was coming out of Neville, and he wanted more money in year 2, a lot more money in year 2. And he wasn't going to start then. So LSU said, can't justify that. So he left. He's going to go somewhere where he gets it. So good for him, but no, I don't see him coming back. He'll go somewhere that's stolen out a lot of cash in the portal. Do you think Corey hire will sway Bussey? I think it's got a great shot. Let's talk about Terry Bussey, the 5-star is committed to A&M, and LSU gets him for an official visit at the end of January. So I think absolutely got a great shot, a better shot with Corey than he did without. Caleb Downs in the portal. There was also the sorry, cracking my neck. There it is. DeAndre Robinson was a Texas four-star defensive tackle signee, and Texas has let him out of his national letter of intent. So I think there's probably a good shot that LSU gets in the mix there with Bo Davis. What's Brian Kelly's buyout if Michigan comes calling? It's only like $375K. Actually, let me check that. That might have been Denbrock. Hang on, let me check that. Here it is. If he leaves, so it's $2 million. $2 million would be the buyout. It was $3 million before December 31st of 2023. So at New Year's Day, it dropped to $2 million. So it's for the rest of the contract at any point, it's $2 million. So, I mean, it's in the world of buyouts, $2 million to get out of that contract. I mean, my point, and I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that's not something that would prevent a deal from getting done. But again, I want to reiterate, I have no reason to believe whatsoever that Michigan has interest in Brian Kelly. Like, can I say that any more clearly? I mean, if I have one, with the way that whole thing played out, if I have one regret, it's that I wish I'd at least one time during that 48 hours spoken up and loudly said, hey, I never said that Michigan was interested or anything of the sort. But I didn't. I just figured the news cycle will spin and the story would run its course and it would go away. And it has largely. But if Harbaugh leaves, then it's rebirthed again. So anyway. Tyler McClendon, good morning. Steven Randazzo, Jacobian Guillory withdrew from the draft. I think that's huge. Your thoughts? Yeah, Steven, I would recommend. So he didn't withdraw. He never put his name in. I did a segment on AFR where I talked about 6 players that were really important for LSU that elected to stay. You got Garrett Dellinger and Miles Frazier. It's 2 offensive linemen you got to return. I think it's very important they got Kyron Lacey back as well. And then defensively, Jacobian Guillory, Savion Jones, and Paris Shand were all guys that were draft eligible, could have left, decided to come back. And so it gives you a really veteran presence on both lines of scrimmage. So, yes, I think Jacobian Guillory coming back for 5th year is a big deal. I don't know that he's, a guy that you're looking at and saying, well, he's going to be an all-SEC type player. But he's an important veteran rotational piece on your defensive line who's played a lot of football for you. So, yes, that's at a spot where you are dangerously thin. To have a guy back for a 5th season is important, yes. Callum Alexander, Brian Kelly did the right thing bringing Corey back. He's also not going to Jeff and Kat Graham, morning, Matt. Looks like LSU going to be able to play okay defense next year. Can't wait to see a real LSU defense again. Amen. Joe Parker, Greg Lehman. What agent is feeding you information about Brian Kelly to Michigan? Trace Armstrong. I will tell you, it is not singularly sourced, and there's nothing to be told there. It is well known in. Yeah, I'm not even talking about it. I'm going to get clipped again and taken out of context. I'm not talking about it. If the day comes again, we'll talk about it. Will Marler, if Frank Wilson, Virg Osbury, and Scott Woodward were so quick to sign Bo Davis, why did it take so long to pull the trigger on Corey? Have to think Corey was not their first choice. Will, what I'm willing to tell you is that it just wasn't a consensus. I think there were people on staff and in the administration that wanted Corey to return. And there were people on staff and in the administration that wanted to go a different direction. So that's why I kept saying it ultimately is going to come down to who has the final say. Does Blake Baker get to hire assistants for his staff? Blake and Corey were on staff together at LSU in 2021. So there's a relationship there. Brian Kelly didn't know Corey Raymond. Verge obviously did. Anyway, the point being, he was there, he was available. The thing with Bo Davis is you had to move quickly because Bo Davis had a job. Corey didn't. He was unemployed. He was just waiting, and so you could vet other possibilities and look at how you wanted to structure things. With Bo Davis, you had a short window and you had to move, and they did. Same with Blake Baker. They wanted to get Blake Baker done first, and then Bo Davis followed, and Kevin Peoples, and so on. Any spring transfers Kelly may be interested in? Oh, absolutely. I mean, now you don't know yet until you know who's in the portal. But spring transfers, I mean, yes, you need corner. You would need at least another corner, and you need a defensive tackle. Tommy Ross Bjork is the master of leveling up without doing anything. It really is odd. I mean, he's been a bunch of places and he's bounced around, and I'm sure created great relationships, but to go from Ole Miss to Texas A&M to Ohio State is impressive, considering I can't really name the benchmark thing he's done. Honestly, it's probably the fact that he's the one that gave Jimbo the extension. I mean, everyone focuses on Woodward giving Jimbo the original contract, but the thing I said at the time that Jimbo got that contract was everybody freaked out over 10 years, $75 million. But by the time you get to the end of that deal, is anybody going to be freaking out over $7.5 million? Because he'll be the 30th highest paid coach in the country at that time, which would have essentially held true. But Woody left, Bjork got the job. They had a 9-win season in the COVID year, and they gave him the extension, and that's ultimately what cost him. Richie B, guess what day it is? Joe Parker, Saban retiring date had a big effect on what coaches LSU had to pick from. I don't think so. I don't know that there's a correlation there. I think LSU identified who they wanted and went and got them. Strong side, Musa's high on Gage jump. Is Gage the diamond in the rough? Didn't hear much about him last season. Well, he was at UCLA, and I'm guessing you just didn't watch a lot of UCLA baseball. But yeah, he's a lefty, and I think it was Perfect Game or whatever came out with their list of the top 50 juniors for this upcoming season. Tommy White was number 9. Thatcher Hurd, Luke Holman, and Gage Jump were all in the top 50. I think Gage Jump was number 43. So yeah, you got a really, really good rotation this year. Elijah Steele, where do you think the staff ranks up against others in the country? It seems like Woodward and Brian Kelly are putting the Avengers together. Yeah, I can't sit here and tell you that I know every coach on every staff in the country, but I also look at it in context of what are you trying to accomplish here? And if what you're trying to accomplish is, man, you need to get the best players from Louisiana and Texas and really put a fence around the state, etc. Brad Davis, Bo Davis, Joe Sloan, Frank Wilson, Corey Raymond. Yeah, I mean, that's formidable. Logan, could this staff have the same effect at Oregon? I don't know. But you want to get stuff done in Louisiana? Frank Wilson, Corey Raymond, Bo Davis. Yeah. Caleb Downs plans into the portal announcement. By the way, shout out to Hayes Fawcett. I don't know if y'all remember, but so Hayes Fawcett, who now works for On3, and he's the guy that essentially breaks all the news about commitments and visits because he does all the edits. He does the graphic edits, right? Hayes is a young guy from like a rural town in Louisiana, and I remember however many years ago that was, 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, he was like a high school junior, and all these dudes were hitting him up to do their edits about their commitments. And so I had Hayes on the air on AFR. We talked about it, and it's incredible. I mean, he's probably the most important person in recruiting nationally because he knows everybody's decision before anybody else. Because everyone tells him where they're going, so he can make the edits. So I mean, Hayes Fawcett knows everything about recruiting, but he'll never violate anybody's trust, and it's pretty incredible what he's been able to do. I mean, so On3 hired him, which was a brilliant thing to do, because all of this commitment news all funnels through On3 because Hayes gets all the commitments. Logan Jones question: can players transfer their position? Coach leaves, but the head coach does not. No, that's just for head coaches. Yigo 1469. Yeah, Caleb Downs. It'll be so. Caleb Downs, defensive back from Alabama. Obviously, everybody knows was freshman All-America this year. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if that's an NIL deal, if that's a Saban leaving. I don't know. I'll ask around. Is it possible for them to hire the other coach for safeties from the NFL since they said Corey would only be coaching corners? Possibly, sure. But it kind of feels like your defensive staff is full. Remember, we've talked about this. You've got Blake Baker, who's going to coach linebackers, Bo Davis, who's coaching defensive line. You've got Kevin Peebles, who's going to coach ends. You just hired Corey, and then you hired Olson as well from Missouri, who could coach safeties, but has also been a special teams coordinator. So you only have one spot open left on your staff, and you need a tight ends coach. So you're probably, as I told you, hiring either Slade Nagel or John McNulty to coach tight ends. I mean, those are the only two names I've heard about tight ends. So Slade Nagel from Tulane or John McNulty, who was an analyst at Bama this past year and was Kelly's tight ends coach at Notre Dame in 20 and 21. So again, I'll go back to what I've told y'all. It's how they're going to structure the staff with rules. Richie B. Robert Collins, what's up? What's your all-time favorite game you've attended in Tiger Stadium? Yeah, you mentioned 07 Florida. Yeah, I'll give you two. 07 Florida and 01 Auburn. I mean, 01 Auburn was just, LSU won the West for the first time ever, stormed the field. I was a student. I know it's hard. It's really hard to explain that context to younger people. And I'm not an old guy. I get it. I know there's people who have been around and been a fan way longer than me, who, my first memories were the 6 straight losing seasons. The Archer Holman era. My first actual memories. But man, you just never thought LSU was ever going to Atlanta. You never thought they were going to win the SEC. It sounds stupid now to say it, but it just, that felt like forbidden fruit for LSU. So to get there think about Ole Miss. Ole Miss has never been to Atlanta. It's got to be what it's like. If Ole Miss ever would have won the West and gone to Atlanta, what would that celebration for them have been like? That's what it felt like. Will Saban run a coaching rehab out of his business, as one of his business in retirement? Think there's any chance LSU football would come to College Park, Maryland? Sure. I mean, Maryland's in the Big Ten. I guess there's always a chance to play home and home. I don't think that would be the ideal home and home opponent, but you could. Neville Lewis, who dat? Joe Parker, did we miss the big changes? LOL. What big changes? Are you talking about on my show? So Joe, I don't know if you're just joining. I started the show on streaming software, and operator error, I screwed up something with the audio, so people couldn't hear. So I just stopped that stream and just started it up on the phone just to go live. Oh, it's 8:30. I gotta go. Mike Hardy, good morning from Jersey. If Harbaugh leaves, how aggressive will Michigan be for Kelly? I don't know. I don't want to answer this question every day, but I feel like I'm going to answer this question every day. So, Benton Troxclair, morning, Matt. Seeing McNeese get AP top 25 votes hurts. You know, Benton, but the other part of it too is, and I'm with you, and I love Will, and I wish Will Wade never left, but it was Will's doing, man. It was Will's voice on the wiretap, and the NCAA was just pretty clear, man. They were going to hold football over LSU's head until they got their pound of flesh from Will Wade. So you fired Will Wade to make sure that football got off easy, and that was the right decision. Let's see. James Avery, Auburn games from the 2000s on were some of the best in Tiger Stadium, no doubt, man. I mean, bring back the Magic in 95, Cecil Collins in 97. Cigar game in 99 sucked. I was not there. I was actually we're playing Shaw at Hoss Memphis Saturday morning, my senior year. 01, 03 LSU blew them out. 05 was the overtime game where John Vaughn missed 5 field goals. 07 was Flynn DeBird. 09 was a little nondescript. 2011 LSU blew them out wearing those alternate uniforms. 13 was the one where LSU just trucked them in the first half in the rain. And then Auburn kind of got going in the second half, and that ended up being the only game Auburn lost, if you remember. 15 was Leonard Fournette throwing dudes over his shoulders, which was incredible. 17 was the comeback. 19 was the only tight game LSU played all year in 2019. 21, Bo Nix. And then this year, 23. So. Okay. Yeah, 03 Georgia. Thank you. I should have mentioned 03 Georgia as well. Yeah, if you made me in my lifetime the best games I've attended at Tiger Stadium, 01 Auburn, 03 Georgia, 07 Florida. That would be the list for sure. Okay, I gotta go. Thanks for watching, y'all. Please smash the like button if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to the channel. As always, shout out to Brock, Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic. You need an orthopedist, Brock's the best. And of course, Hudco Roofing, HudcoRoofing.com. As we start to thaw out, if you realize you got roof damage, give us a shout. We'd love to help you. Hudco Roofing and HudcoRoofing.com. Okay, y'all have an awesome day. We'll see you for AFR3. Peace.